Welcome back. I didn't get to this as soon as I wanted to, with a whole lot going on over here. I have work, of course, but then again, I also have trees to bring down for milling, and we are getting ready to build a guest house on the property that will be off-grid. So, yeah, I've got plenty of time. But anyway, I wanted to come back and tell the story about what I consider the world's biggest lie. But to tell that story, I have to tell the smaller story about how I stumbled on it. I had a friend who called me one day and told me that he had a video I needed to see. And it was called The Plan to Save the World. Well, that sounded pretty good, so I said, yeah, please send it to me. So he did. And being as busy as I was at that point with work, I didn't get a chance to watch it for a couple of days. But then I had an order that I needed to pick up from a supplier of cedar for a very large job. So I decided I was going to go ahead and watch it while I was sitting in line, waiting for them to bring the order. The man's name was Scott McKay, and he sat in his office much like I am right now, and was talking about this plan. And he was talking about Trump having been selected by the military to run because he was not in the system. Well, I had never heard anything about that, although I did think that, having a businessman would be a great idea. So I was all for it. But anyway, he talked about the movie, and he had a link to it. So I thought, well, I'll go ahead and, punch it in and watch it. Man, it sounded good. I mean, removing all the bad, evil people out of government and academia, the news. I mean, we've all known for years that there were people doing things they shouldn't be doing, some of it even illegal. And so, yeah, it was a great deal. The problem was, it didn't seem very likely. But I gave it a chance. I thought, that's a good possibility that I can't rule it out. I try not to rule anything out until I can either prove it or disprove it. And I've always been that way. But after watching it, I had mixed feelings. And my friend told me, hey, you need to get on Telegram because there's a couple of accounts going on about the details. And if you want to learn about it, that's where you ought to go. Well, I'd never heard of Telegram, but I joined it. I've never been one to chat very much about much of anything other than in person. But immediately, I liked the interface of it and the way it was set up. And I joined a couple of the channels he had told me about. One of them was called Ghost Ezra. And that was the biggest one. That guy had 300 and something thousand followers. And I was like, wow, that's that's pretty good because, on Facebook, having 2,000 or 3,000 that's pretty good. And I've never known anybody to have that many, except maybe on YouTube. So I got on there, and I also followed some people that he recommended on Facebook. Well, the Facebook crew was less interesting, and thankfully I hung with it because that's where the red flags started showing up. They had these slogans like trust the plan and nothing can stop what is coming. It had to be this way. I mean, just over and over and over, they just wore these out. And there were several more, but I can't remember all of them. So I kind of got away from the Facebook groups and started diving more into the Telegram group, especially Ghost Ezra's. He seemed to know more about this whole thing than anybody else. And at that point, I didn't know what controlled opposition was. I didn't know what conspiracy theorists, I knew what they were, kind of. I saw the movie that I always thought they were kooky. I had even met one back in 2004 who told me they were spraying chemicals from the planes, and I was like, oh, really? I didn't believe him. But anyway, so I'm on this Ghost Ezra page, and he keeps posting pretty good pertinent information. Most of it felt credible. But then one morning I was checking it before work, and we had a job in Dallas where we were building a deck. And I wasn't rushed for time, but I didn't have a whole lot of time to read much. But I sat down for a minute with coffee, and I read a post that said the earth was flat. Oh man, I got instantly irked. And I thought to myself, man, you're wasting my time over here. I heard about that crap back in the 80s before the internet. I was just like, who's got time for this nonsense? So I thought, well, when I get back home, I need to get back and do some research, compile a little information, and I'll go back and tell him he's full of it and to get back on the subject. So I joined another page or another channel called the Flat Earth Society, and they had a discussion board, which I joined too. I didn't say anything. I just started clicking on posts and seeing what they had to say. Some of them were kind of what I would put into the category of food for thought, like, the Suez Canal is 102 miles long or 120 miles long or something like that, but they have no locks. So there's no change in height as you go from one sea to the other. And I thought that was kind of weird. But, I knew that water has its own level, always. But I didn't put two and two together right away. And then I got to this post that a guy had put up, and it was talking about a movie that was an hour long, put out by a man named Eric Dubay. And it was called 200 Proofs We Don't Live on a Spinning Ball, or something like that. So I thought, well, you know what? I'll watch this thing. But I've got an hour to kill. I'll probably have a lot of laughs, and I'll probably get some ammunition out of it so I can go back and tell the guy he's full of it. Well, I didn't last but 5 minutes because apparently the guy liked rap music, which I can't stand to listen to. So I punched out, And I thought, well, while I'm here on his website, I'll see if he's got anything in print. Well, he did. He had a PDF by the same name, by the way. So I pulled it up and I started reading. And at first it was a little repetitive. I mean, some of the proofs he had, while they did make some sense, they kind of overlapped. One sounded like the other, and I don't know, it wasn't doing a lot. Some of it you would have to go out and test for yourself. And I wasn't, opposed to that. But, I mean, it's nighttime. I don't have time to do that. Didn't have a high zoom camera to do much photographic evidence. But then I got to a post that had a picture of Chicago. It was taken from 59 miles away from a place called Indiana Dunes across Lake Michigan. And this photo really caught my attention because I had seen it several times. I'm a big fan of construction of all kinds, obviously. I'm in the business, but mostly skyscrapers really, really interested me when I was younger. And as soon as the internet came around, I joined a page called the Skyscraper page. And so I knew random facts about certain buildings. The Sears Tower in Chicago, for instance, 1,451 feet from the ground to the top floor, the roof actually. And that's before the two spires. And it's now called the Willis Tower, by the way. Well, this photograph was interesting because you could see the whole skyline with maybe the exception of a couple of floors at the bottom. And I mean, all of it was there. And so I thought, well, I wonder what the curvature of the earth is. And I looked down on the post and it went through, how many feet should be hidden. So I thought, well, that may or may not be right. I'm going to check it myself. So I went to my favorite search engine at the time, which I think was Brave. And I decided to look it up. And I found two different formulas. One was trigonometry, which I was never good at, but thankfully it was not something I had to compute on my own. It was done for you. You just plug in the height of the observer, the distance, and you have to multiply the distance by itself to get the curvature. And then you multiply it by 8 inches. And basically what it comes to is miles at 59 times 59 times 8. And that gives you the inches of curvature that should be there. So then you take 12 inches and divide that into the number that you got. And that gives you the number of feet of curvature. Well, that number came to 2,320 feet. Got chills instantly when I saw that because, like I said, I know the tower is 1,451 feet. So all of it should have been hidden. The fact that none of it was, that was pretty much earth-shaking to me because I'd never thought about it. Well, that inspired me to keep reading. And within 3 hours after reading this and, going and testing some of the posts by looking up facts, how long is the Suez Canal, and that kind of thing. I guess it took just a little less than 3 hours, and I was pretty well convinced that he was right. And I could not go back to his chat and tell him he was an idiot. So I decided I was going to keep that channel, but I was going to concentrate on the Flat Earth Society channel. And they always said that they were not affiliated with the website. Now the website, they called it controlled opposition. So I had to look that up. I'd never heard the term, but it's pretty much as it sounds. It's an opposition that is controlled by whoever puts out the bad information to start with. So they swore that they weren't. But over time, you see the agitators and the argumentative people coming in, and nobody removed them. And if you know anything about that type of attitude, it turns people off. And so I began to think, you guys, you really don't want people to learn very much. I mean, you're posting the information, but you still have these guys over here that are irking everybody with their third grade insults, and you're not taking them out. So I thought, maybe they don't have time. So I offered to be part of the moderating staff, and they turned me down. Probably because they knew I was going to do the job. But I wound up getting off of that one and on to several more that didn't have that problem. And then I decided I would start my own. And so I did. I had it public for a very short time, but the main focus was saving information. So I started opening up other channels, but not inviting anybody into them, just to have a repository for different parts of the information. Like, I have a channel about the moon, I have a channel about the earth, a channel about the sun. So anything relating to any one of those three went into those three. And then I started putting together more and more, like one for satellites, one for space, just all kinds of different ones. Now the one that I had for space, I changed the name to Real Stars, because one of the most fascinating things to me was what a star looks like when you film it on video using a camera that can zoom into them. I had bought a Nikon P900, which had an 83x zoom, or an 82x, can't remember which one, but it was quite a big zoom capability. In fact, they said it was like having a 2,000 millimeter lens on the end of your camera. I mean, that lens would be at least that long. But this one was built in, so you could zoom in and out at will, which was kind of neat. So I took that camera out on the porch after seeing Mars and a couple of others on YouTube as moving, not static stars. In other words, patterns of movement were visible in the video. So I got my little star finder out. It's an app on the phone. And I pointed it up at the night sky, and I saw Venus was lit up. As it had a name on it, and it highlighted it. Well, instantly, it dawned on me that the way the solar system is planned out, funny I use that word planned, the way it's drawn out or shown, you have the sun in the center. So let's say the sun is here. Then you have Mercury, Venus, and Earth. Well, what dawned on me is if it's nighttime on Earth, you don't see the sun, but you don't see anything else behind it either. You don't see anything but darkness and the other planets, for lack of a better word, just yet. But you couldn't see Venus or Mercury ever because their orbits never take you far enough out to be visible at night from Earth. So I used to listen to this radio program, and they had some guys on there that were pretty funny. And they had situations that would stop down whatever was going on at the time, and they called them enders. So I immediately decided that seeing Venus was an ender for the heliocentric system. Mercury, the same thing, there's no way. Now all the rest of them are outside our orbit according to them. And by them, I mean, people from Copernicus on up to your astronomy teacher in college or your science teacher in high school. So, armed with that, I'm on the porch and I'm shooting a video of Venus and it's moving. I had a phone call at the time that I was fielding. So I had to ask them to hold on while I finished the video. But I still have it to this day, and at some point I'll post it. But that was pretty much earth-shaking to me. All of this happening within the space of, a couple of months. And that's where it started. Ever since that day, it has been a cascading event of truth, because people on these channels that I was on Telegram, and still am on a couple of them, didn't just cover the Earth. I mean, they talked about the moon landing and all those other things, but they also covered things that are going on in the world. Who is really genuine in roles of leadership? And I'm sorry to say there's just none of them that I know of at this point. But all of this information working through my head, and I'm thinking one day, you know what, I'm going to pull the Bible out and see what it says in Genesis, because I remember that it describes how the earth was created and how we were created. So I'm reading Genesis, and I'm in the first part of Genesis. And it says the earth was made the first day after the firmament parted the waters above from the waters below. But then it says that the moon and the sun were made on the fourth day and placed inside the firmament. Well, that was kind of a shock because I hadn't read that since I was a kid. And I'm not sure I understood it back then. In fact, I'm pretty sure I didn't. And they tell you that the Bible's metaphorical and that it doesn't really mean what it says. But I found that that's just not true. And that's when it hit me. That's why they lied about it. The main reason. So I've been diving into truth ever since. I never rule anything out, although I have ruled out one thing. I've ruled out that we are on a planet. I've ruled out that we are in a solar system. And if you look at the numbers that they give you for certain things, there's a pattern. And I'll be sharing that pattern in some of the forthcoming videos. It's insanity when you start looking at this stuff, realizing what these people have done. And you realize why they do it, but it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it got to be too much at one point. I had to quit looking at it for 2 or 3 days. But that didn't last very long because I've always been a curious fellow in that if I want to research something, I don't let go of it until I either figure it out, prove it, disprove it, what have you. And while a lot of the stuff in the truth world is not provable, it started to come to my attention that we are shown that it's false. We're shown the truth. And it's amazing the medium they use. Cartoons, movies, books. I mean, when you start seeing this stuff, you never stop. The old saying that you can't unsee it is very, very true. So that's the focus of this channel. It's not going to be something for everybody. Some of you are going to dismiss it right away. Some of you won't say anything like I didn't until you look into it yourself, and I will give you places to look. Even though I took my channel private, I have started another one with the same name, and I'll be sharing that very soon, and it's public. And so anybody will be able to join, and you can see some of this information for yourself. And it doesn't just cover the earth, it covers lots of other things. So hopefully I can reach some people, because we're not supposed to fight evil on our own. We're just supposed to expose it and let people think for themselves, because we have free will. The Heavenly Father gave us free will. We can do anything here we want. Now, whether that's right or not, I don't believe it is, but a lot of people do. So hopefully you'll come along for the ride. Some of it may really get under your skin. Some of you may do the same thing I did and just give it a chance, do some research, not rule it out until you can prove to yourself one way or the other if it's true or not. And I will say, don't take anything I say as 100% proof of anything until you look at it yourself. I talked to the Heavenly Father at one point, and I asked him, please show me if this is real. And he has, in so many words. I've never heard his voice, but things keep popping up here and there on different platforms. on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Telegram. And then you just get a feeling when you see some of these creators, are they real? Yeah, maybe, but then you see some signage that tells you, well, they're telling you what some other people are telling you, but they're also not being 100% real about it. So we're going to talk about those people. We're going to expose who's not saying what they should be. We're going to talk about the people who do. And we're going to cover some things that I can't prove. Maybe you can. And we'll see where it goes. So if you've lasted this far, thank you for joining. And hopefully you'll come back and watch the next video. In the meantime, question everything.